would love to get to your questions. I'm going to look at the chat. I haven't looked yet. You can raise your hand. We will unmute you, and thank you all for listening. That was just a lot of talking all at once. I'm so sorry for that. Who would like to raise their hand and ask the first question? Sorry, Lena's unmuting. I see people. Lena here is unmuting. She's trying to unmute Sophie. Hi, Sophie. I can't let anyone unmute. There's something wrong with our unmuting here. Do you want to? I'll read a question from the comments. Let's see. Sorry about that.
It said the host would like you to unmute.
Oh, there we go. All right, Beckett, you're in. Okay, Beckett, please, first question.
Hi there. Thanks for all this work. This is super inspiring. I've just launched a small arts nonprofit, a printmaking society in San Diego, and we're literally in the process of doing our 501(c)(3) and stuff like that. Are there things that we can do right now to set ourselves up to become A-Corps when the legislation passes and incorporate some of these ideas as we set ourselves up right now?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I would say even if you have a 501(c)(3, like I think of it as like an A-Corp could be like your almost like your sidecar you use to operate certain sort of practices or projects. I think for other sorts of folks, there's going to be maybe an A-Corp as their primary business entity, but they'll have something like a fiscal sponsor to access more philanthropic funds. So right now, I think having two different structures is probably the best practice. We did look a lot into how to allow for artist corporations to receive philanthropic funds directly. We think there is a path. It takes federal tax law change. So it will take some time, but that is the ultimate goal, that you don't have to make that choice. But right now, I think there's a lot of legitimate reasons to have both of those paths available because, they're both important sources of funding. Yeah, thank you, Beckett. Yeah. Next, Ramel, what's up? Think.
Oh, hey, thank you for putting together this Q&A. I made a video about this recently and got a lot of views, so I hope people are here from that. Simple question. You can register to be a business in Colorado in any state. So does that mean that you will be able to register to be an A Corp in Colorado in any state?
Correct. So
Okay.
there are two caveats. Number one, to register as a Colorado business from outside of Colorado, you have to you have to do a process where you have a physical address somewhere in Colorado. There's services you pay to do that. We'll probably end up making it super cheap. That ends up being like $30 a year, $50 a year, that type of thing is what I've seen looking around. So there's that part. Second caveat is that some states require you to have an entity in your own state too, even if you're registered elsewhere. Not everybody has that rule, but some states and definitely some countries have that rule. So in that case, you might still end, it's possible that you still end up with like whatever the funky paperwork is of wherever you are, this other layered thing on top. So I don't know the rules of every state to say that's what the case is. Um, but we will be in Colorado has good is friendly to this, and we will be in most of the big states, I think, within the next couple of years, and we'll see.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Congratulations too.
Oh yeah, thank you, appreciate it. Uh, next, Dario.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, I am calling you from Texas. Very excited to be a part of this call. I am fairly new um, to understanding business structure, so my knowledge is quite limited. I was hoping you could maybe explain a little bit about how A Corps and maybe DBAs um, would coexist, because I'm curious about how to integrate different aspects of an artist's practice that may not necessarily always relate to each other. Maybe wanting to separate certain kinds of work for certain audiences from each other.
And DBAs, is that what you said?
Yes.
What is DBAs? What is DBAs?
Oh, doing business as.
Doing business as, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like uh I think a common structure might be that someone has like a almost like an A-Corp as your studio practice, maybe an overall practice, but that, say, for other specific projects or sub-projects or collaborations, if like right now to start an A-Corp in Colorado is $50. So to create a separate entity that, say, might represent that work, that creates a clean financial, cap table P&L around each of those projects, I think is a very simple way to do things. And is a lot of how people use LLCs now. So I think the same sort of thing of like an A, say, holding other A's or allowing certain parts of a business or a practice to be separated is going to be, it's going to make a lot of sense. You can, Dar, if you have more, pipe in the comments. I'll check it in the comments. Graham?
Thank you so much for your work on this. I'm based in Kansas and I run an entrepreneur support organization. So my question is, how can folks like myself who run ESOs across the country help with this movement?
Great question. And you all have I know in Kansas, there was the Entrepreneurs First movement happened by Victor Wong. I don't know if you know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so if I look at Colorado, like Colorado succeeded in becoming a law based on some specific sort of arts leaders, both private and public, getting into it, as well as individual artists just advocating for it. And there's a way that it really sort of galvanized an energy and brought people together. So I think the initial phase is often like that galvanizing, bringing people together thing. I think the next phase, which is what this call is really the start of, is about learning together, about being in community with people going through this, and something like sort of cohorts of folks sort of going through the process, starting a business together, at the same time, not necessarily together, but at the same time. And that really is like, in many ways, an entrepreneurship type of incubator experience that has existed in other parts of the ecosystem for a while. So, I think in many ways, there's a possibility here of both respecting what is unique about how artists and creative people work, which is different, which is not about, addressable markets or things like that, but is about, getting stronger in some operational and business skills. I think there's a lot that can happen. We're using the A-Corp DFOS as the main hub. Right now, our team is way too small. It's mainly just me and Lena here. We're looking to hire a director. Like there needs to be more folks that can help organize the energy that's here. But this is very much a thing that people can bring to their community, and we want to be able to publish information that someone could take and give a presentation to their community, and we don't have to be there. So I'm open to ideas and suggestions, and we really want this to be a shared story that we're all telling and supporting, and are looking for those sorts of paths to get there. Sorry to again just talk a lot, but I appreciate that question. Ishmael.
Hey Yancey, appreciate this. I'm in the dark forest rabbit hole, so feel like a lot of this goes hand in hand. It's exciting to experience. My question is also kind of an extension from Graham's. I'm in New York, and yesterday, the Freelancers Union that I'm a member of had a town hall with the new ED, and of course, A-Corps were brought up, and yeah, just wanted to ask about, any specific kind of programs or efforts of, establishing constituency or advocacy.
How to come up? What did people say? Can I ask?
Oh man, I don't have my notes handy right now what question it came from, but someone in the comments, and he's another graphic designer I've met at some of the other events, but we were talking about A-Corps during the Freelancers and Free Day, which was the law that was passed, particularly in New
Yep.
York. And so there was like an anniversary event of that, and we were talking about it then. And then he brought it up in the chat during the town hall yesterday. But the I think that that just was a good indicator of the buzz around it. And I
Yeah.
think for organizations like the Freelancers Union, yeah, I'm trying to figure out like how to connect the dots while in these other
Totally.
cities.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Freelancers Union is a great org started here in New York. A woman named Sarah Horowitz, but it's trying to get together all the folks that are just doing lots of freelance work and make a collective bargaining power sort of org out of it. So there was healthcare in the past. I think that is no longer there. But yeah, definitely kindred spirits, and yeah, I should talk to them. Thanks for bringing them up, Ishmael. Let's do that. Valerie, you were up next.
Thank you. Would like to just build a little bit on Ramel's question. I have an LLC in my home state, and I'm wondering with the A-Corp, particularly right now with it being available in Colorado, what's the easiest way we find out about whether or not or how the protection that is applicable in Colorado umbrellas out to the states, to the artists in the states and other places, especially given like what you mentioned, you have to have you have to have an agent, like the address agent and stuff, but are the protections in Colorado going to protect me in the state that I'm actually practicing in?
What state are you in?
I'm in Nebraska right now.
In Nebraska. Yeah, I mean, I would think so. But I'm not an expert on Nebraska law, but in general, I believe corporate legal infrastructure sort of law stands and isn't in conflict. There will be at the beginning an ability to convert an existing entity into an A-Corp.
Okay.
So that process will exist. Colorado Secretary of State's office tells us. We'll probably have to help make it for them, but that will exist. And yeah, so I think, I don't know, we'll have to dig into some of the specific cases of like what it means for in a specific state to change. I would hesitate to make a recommendation not knowing what all the consequences might be. But in general, we think we have thought of LLCs and S-Corps converting to A-Corps as a standard thing that we think will happen. And so we've anticipated that within the state of Colorado. How that works for other places, we'll have to do more research to answer specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Valerie. Nanso, what's up?
Hi, thanks so much for having this. I'm a huge fan of your work and your essays. So I am a 3L at Penn Carey Law here in Philly, and I'm also an artist and dabble a little bit in corporate law, specifically big law. So I'm familiar with Suze's work. And I was just wondering how someone like me could get involved and like put my training to good use, especially before I start working full time, but hopefully continuing to participate in that capacity as well.
Just a big law dabbler, of course, like we all are. That's cool. Yeah, there are a few legal folks who've been amazing help to date. Shout out to Jason Weiner in Colorado. Shout out to Jason Schultz at NYU. And shout out to Stephanie Drum, who has been the main author of the Colorado bill and will continue to be writing together. And of course, Suze. Yeah, we have we need to make, I had it at the start and then shut it down, but we should make a space within DFOS for lawyers specifically, because there are folks who I see are answering questions, offering help, which I'm super down for. I think that's great. And there are definitely discussions to be had around a lot of decisions that we're making. I also learned from the process that like drafting groups, the bigger they get, the worse they are. And so, want that energy because there's a lot that we can learn, especially from folks who are like a tax lawyer where it just gets so specific. But so the DFOS acorp.dfos.com is going to be the area where that will happen. it will require being on a computer and, doing things. But other than that, I think can be pretty chill. But glad you want to help and welcome it. I mean, really welcome it. It's just people putting their energy in that's made it happen. Thank you. Thank you. Josh.
Yeah, hi, Yancey. Thanks so much. I am a former Big Law M&A corporate transactional attorney and an intellectual property attorney. So this is right up my alley. I left law about 10 years ago, still kind of quasi practice, but not really. But I founded an artist advisory and consulting firm where we work with individual artists and sort of say, you have a lot of things that you do, not just the thing that you do. You're a creative person in general. So part of what we do is help structure from a corporate perspective. We also help strategize how to organize and strategically roll out your intellectual property output into brands or projects and things like that. So this is really a perfectly well received and very much welcomed new structure. We structure things in trusts, we structure things in LLCs, et cetera. So we've already put in place a more complicated version of this. So again, I welcome the cleaner, more efficient version of this, assuming that it's recognized and it continues to be upheld by courts and things like that. But that's not for this call. My question to you is multiple. First is the thing I'm most interested about right now is on the equity that you said in terms of the various classes. Is this similar to like how a general partner in a fund is structured so that their GPs get pieces of each individual project? Is it effectively an automatic sort of individual subclass of equity? Is that how it's structured? That's my first question. And the second question is on the mission, because one of the things that we work with on all of our artists before we do anything with them is we create what we call a creative purpose statement for the human. And that becomes their sort of North Star of what they do over the course of their lives. And everything has to follow or be in furtherance of that creative purpose statement, which to me maps beautifully to your mission.
Exactly.
So my question to you is this, I'm assuming this is great for an individual who has a whole series of intellectual property output. But secondly is, can you stack A-Corps on top of A-Corps? In other words, we have, let's just call it a band, a musical band of 3 members. Can each individual member have an A-Corp? And then all 3 of those A-Corps own the band's intellectual property. So you have 3 different missions, all protected by the same structure. Sorry for the multi-lever question.
Love it. Love it. And thank you for your work and love. I want to like diff our agreement from what you do and just see the things you've learned through experience. Really love that.
I'd love to help out with you in any way, shape I can.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be an advocate and bring this to however many people I can.
Just on the first question about class of shares, I was thinking of it the way it's currently structured is almost thinking of it the way there are founder shares and startups where say there's like a super majority sort of share that has an Uber vote, or that say has total rights over creative decisions, but say operational decisions, investors can have a vote, but not in other areas. So we thought of it as a way of just separating areas of governance. Right now, it does assume that everyone is a percentage owner of future projects according to the equity structure. If everything's just sort of absorbed into the cap table of the A. But as you know, if you're creating side entities for each thing, you have to rewrite those. But yeah, lots of nerdy places to go there, though I'd love to get into another time. We'll come back to that later. Let's go to Jimmy. What you got?
Hi, Yancey. Hi, everybody. I am an accountant and I help small business owners set up their entities, set up their accounting systems. I prepare the tax returns and I have a partner CPA firm in Portland, Oregon that I work with. And so I'm also a lifelong musician and have some clients that are like record labels in LA and musicians, like session musicians in Portland. And so the timing's great because for the last 6 months or so, I've been kind of putting my head together, like, how can I help spread the knowledge that I've learned working with business owners of like varying sizes, from like small to medium size, let's say up to like $5 million in revenue. How can I take all the stuff that they do and kind of share those strategies with the artist community? Um, so one of the questions I have is going back to Josh's question, the classes of equity, because one of the biggest, if not largest, sort of lever that a business owner can pull is the S Corp election. So even if they're an LLC, you can elect to be taxed as an S Corp. And there are a variety of benefits. Typically, if you're making between like 75,000 and 150,000, it's like the biggest benefit. But you can only have one class of shares. So I just want to throw that out there because
Yep.
I don't know if you've considered it yet, but I have a question.
Yeah, there is that election option when creating that you can choose, to be taxed as an S corp. That is there. And yes, that does mean dual class structures become a blocked path. But yeah, totally.
So you can select the S Corp. Sorry, repeat that back to me when you're signing up in Colorado.
You can choose, how do you wish to be taxed? Like, you could choose, do you want to be taxed as an LLC? Do you want to be taxed as an S corp? Do you want to be taxed as you
Right.
can even choose a C corp, right? So
Right,
I don't know if that
right.
gets to all the things you're talking about, but there is that same
Yeah.
step of where you can choose how you wish to be viewed by the IRS.
Yes, like you filed a form with the IRS, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just curious if like I have a few other from a tax perspective, I have some questions about like how certain things work. So
Yeah,
not that we have answers
basically,
now, because it sounds like we're going to be working to, looking
would
for help
love
in people's contributions. And yeah,
would love your wisdom, would love your energy, like
yeah,
welcome it fully,
yeah.
and um accounting help is great. Like, we care about that. We know we know the importance. So yes, please let's keep talking. And just the way the law is written, it says other than these provisions specifically in the A-Corp law, which I'll drop the text of, it says existing LLC law is what applies. So unless explicitly written otherwise, it's just like treat it as LLC, and LLC is treated. Is basically
Okay,
the overall rule.
great.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Maria.
Hi, Yancey. Thanks so much for this and all of your work on this program. It's been really amazing. Just wanted to clarify a little bit about we've touched around it. I'm in New York City. I'm a visual artist. I have an LLC currently. So if I signed up for the Artist Corp in Colorado, would those taxes just pass through as they have been to the LLC, and I would keep that as well?
They should, yes. And just for you to know, a secret just between us, but New York will be introducing an A-Corp law next year. So that will be announced this fall. So knock on wood, like, we should be able to do that here in New York, by 2028. But so it is underway.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Lena's saying, sorry, Lena's speaking from across from, people are asking about other states. I can't, I won't, I don't want to say it because I don't know for sure, but I mean, for sure California, New York, Illinois are all in motion. Others are strong likelihoods, and it's just about someone stepping up to be the sponsor and making it happen. Anastasia.
Hello. I just keep hearing, I've got two questions, and also if there are places where I can just go dive in and read deeper, please feel free to send them my way. A personal question is just to learn a little bit more about the kind of collective shared ownership and governance. I'm all about how do we share wealth and power within a structure instead of creating a separate outside one. And then also just like the question I keep seeing echoed in the videos I've been making, but also even in this chat is like, if you have the time and can explain a little bit more, like how do the IP protections vary across different practices and mediums? So like movement arts or performance art, especially because I imagine a lot of different artists are creating work for other companies. And I'm just curious, like how to keep the intellectual property in that context.
And can you repeat what the first question you asked was, or the first part was?
Yeah, just any information that you want to share about collective ownership, because one of the things I love about A-Corps is that it makes sharing a lot easier among collaborators.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So right now the shared ownership things are, basically just like entries in an Excel sheet that you are filling out when making this form in our little makeshift model. What it will practically be by this fall will be you will allocate percentages that will be represented as technically they will be like ghost shares. They will be representations of equity. They don't actually issue stock or anything yet, because then you typically would need to have to pay taxes on such a thing. But we'll basically be able to show how ownership is distributed between a group of people, to where you could say log into your A-Corp and see ownership breakdowns. If folks are familiar with the platform called Carta, which is used in like the startup world for, say, equity, you could imagine a similar sort of tool to that. So it's just trying to make ownership visible and that people can be able to log into a website and see that they own part of a project. It doesn't mean it's a liquid asset that you could sell or flip or any of that yet, but it just creates initially that that clear record, that ledger of it. And then for projects, for work that exists between projects, or how different entities deal with copyright and ownership. Yeah, we're definitely getting atomized depth with how it works in different specific worlds. I guess I would say that I think in a lot of cases, like the joint venture is going to be what's typical of just make basically a shell organization that is meant to represent just the business interests of whatever this project is. And people put money into that or take money out of that. And that is used as like this standalone entity. I think that's often how these sorts of things are done. But yeah, if it gets into like it's a dance movement collectively written by a troop of 20 people, how is that allocated and separated? I would just be guessing. Also, I know in music things work differently. In music, royalties and shared ownership is very normal. In the art world, you're told that's impossible. So I don't know how these things will net out, but I hope that we're able to make something that starts to feel a little bit more standard and easy to plug into. I think long term, that's where we want to go. Lisa, hello.
Hi, how's it going? Thank you guys. Thanks for hosting this. This is awesome. I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm financing an independent TV and film studio, and I'm using a mix of venture philanthropy and equity to raise the capital for the company. And I'm really interested in the philanthropic side of it and what is possible today, because I'm going after DAF funds, and that takes an intermediary for recoverable grants. So I really wanted to ask about that because it's beyond fiscal sponsorship, and so I just didn't know where we were at, and I'm so curious about it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, let's talk DAFs. So for
Yeah.
those who don't know, DAFs are donor advised funds. This is the new dark money of the world. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it is where modern wealth goes to hide itself and to accrue and to do so without being taxed. And it's also the new source of philanthropy, basically. And for anyone that's trying to raise money for things, you are thinking about how do we get that DAF, how do we get that sweet, sweet DAF money? We've also thought about this. We are supported by the Doris Duke Foundation, by the Hewlett Foundation, by some of the bigger nonprofits who have supported our work with A-Corp. And they are folks who put a lot of money into projects now through grants and through different forms of funding. And we are working with them and want to work with others to make them comfortable, to create programs where they're comfortable putting money into A-Corps, doing it for a variety of reasons. And one of the ideas we've talked about is of creating a DAF that is specifically for A's. Because, for example, right now, there are folks who go to fiscal sponsorship to get access to philanthropic capital. But there is a universe in which A-Corps have a lot of momentum where you could create something like a fund that could help bridge, and you could bring in big philanthropic money to help. In a world where the A-Corp Foundation hires an amazing executive director who knows all these people and can get them on board, I think you could maybe make this happen. But we see it. How exactly you do it, not sure. I'd love to, if you have expertise, Lisa. I'm asking you to unmute. You have thumbs up, expertise. Lisa's got the money, folks.
No.
Big moment.
I've been studying venture philanthropy for the past like 6 months because I'm a dork. And what I've learned is you have to use an intermediary that's more robust than a fiscal sponsor. If you're going to flow money from a DAF into your for-profit business, you have to use a nonprofit intermediary.
Right.
And that nonprofit can create a DAF for you, or they can take an equity stake in your business and be your preferred stock, like your shareholder in your business. And you're able to flow money into your business and back into their DAF as a revenue generating business. So there's some really cool stuff, but the intermediary is just an extra step. And if there's a way to go from DAF to A-Corp and back again, that would cut out such a huge piece of the puzzle and make it so much easier to talk to the donors. So I just throw that out there. Yeah, I've learned a lot about because that's the nonprofit intermediary. What they do is all the IRS compliance. So everything's legit. So that's why you're using them.
Interesting.
But yes, yeah.
All right,
Anyways.
noting that. We'll
Okay.
start the Artist Foundation DAF, the ACF DAF. All right, we got 2 more minutes. Let's get through the last 2 questions. Let's get out of here in less than an hour and respect our time. Ruben, what is up? You are up. Hello.
Hi. Longtime fan, first time caller. I really appreciate all this work that you're doing with this. I work as a strategy director in organizational design and change management, but more particularly, I also moonlight as a choreographer and a movement director. So kind of curious how this new bill and structure would kind of go to support not just choreographers, but also movement artists as a whole. Because I feel like canonically, one of the largest things that movement artists face when it comes to both like funding and protection and like IP is it's a body-based medium. So it's fairly ephemeral. So how does that kind of work or add as like an added layer to this? I know you kind of spoke to it before, but kind of just curious on how that can be centered or is taking concern with things.
I love the movement showing up in a big way. Look out for y'all. Yeah, I'm out of my depth. I mean, I think I've read a little bit about how you can choreograph, or how you can copyright choreography, or what's happened with TikTok dances sort of going wild and attribution. I would just say that I would just sort of go to the default that an A-Corp is a company type that is designed to protect creative work and people by default. So it is intended to protect ownership of such things. I'm not a copyright attorney to know how it is you go about to make sure like that is protected, but I would just say that I would think this would allow you to declare this is protected, as our intellectual property. What that means in the wider world, I don't know, but I appreciate the question. I think it is an important one. Were you going to say something else?
I think I would, to add on to that, I was also curious in terms of kind of like a shared structure of like working with freelance movement artists, as well as if someone has like a company and they're set dancers and they bring in like an additional artist for like a principal role, soloist, etc., of how that similar shared structure might also show up in that capacity.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do this quick, and then Justin, you'll have the last word. You could look at that as having percentages ownerships of the overall studio, or that could be like each company production is its own little project that you get points on, and they think of how core members get it versus, the cast gets it. The overall goal would be to make something that's like, sort of predictable, understood, sort of standardized, where people just feel comfortable with it, and like they know what's going on. All right, Justin, you've been patient. What you got?
Ditto on all the big thanks going out from everybody. Really, really appreciate all of this. So my personal studio practice operates as a single member LLC. So I get to report all of that on my regular tax return, which is great. Makes things super easy for me, and that structure and system works for me in my own studio practice right now. I'm also part of a long-standing arts collective, and we function with two different business models. One is a multi-member LLC, and we have elected to operate as a C Corp, mostly to avoid pass-through taxation because we found that pass-through taxation was messing things up for some folks when they have to report income for certain things like health care and student loan repayment and stuff like that. The other structure that we have is a Washington state nonprofit. We are not yet a 501(c)(3), but we plan to be. And this has been a long-standing conversation for us. Should we be for profit? Should we be nonprofit? Should we be an LLC? Should we go 501(c)(3)? Is fiscal sponsorship enough? And so my biggest interest in A-Corps was the possibility that maybe all of that could come together for us in one neat package. And so this has been touched on already by a few different folks, and I really love what Lisa kind of had to say that was similar to all of this. And so I guess at this point it's less of a question, more of another vote as these things get put into place and the different states kind of start to figure things out. And there starts to become a stronger connection at the federal level to kind of look at the process of taxation, particularly for these donors who want to give grants to artists and arts organizations, but want to reap the tax benefit from it. Because fiscal sponsorship doesn't always work. Some of the grants that we're applying for, we could apply for them with fiscal sponsorship as the LLC and use that money within the things that the LLC does. Or we can do it through the nonprofit and accept a donation, especially when we become 501(c)(3), but then it's limited to just that side of the business and the programming that it might do. So if there's any hope or possibility of pulling all that together into just one business structure in the future, that would be amazing.
Well, it's great for the last question to be a really confusing one. It's perfect. It's right. It's like on brand for our whole situation. But I hear you. And I think the idea that these are separate things is a false dichotomy. The idea that as artists, you're either a nonprofit or a business is false. It's just false. The answer is you are whatever you need to be, and you go where the opportunities are. And, it just stands out so much to me that even philanthropy and nonprofit, like there are no tax benefits to the recipient of the money. It's all to the person donating the money. Everyone else, it's like it's still, and so we've contorted ourselves to fit these other incentive structures, in which we're at the very end of. So this is all the same system. The end goal is all the same system. I think that achieving that goal is probably like a decade-long project. That would be my guess, a decade-long project. And we're in it for that long, and then some, right? A decade is the start. So like that is absolutely where to go. And the way we do that is first by showing our power, by crowding into a structure, by allowing ourselves to be more easily visible, more legible. I saw questions about how do we allow our data to be better understood. We have a whole other idea around that we could talk about another time. A-Corp policy number 2 coming soon. But yeah, like so much of it actually is in our control of just by acting in a way that's not giving up our own individual voices, because our individuality is also important to us. But just by, being in the same room, sharing the same infrastructure can be enough to really give us more of a voice. So I love how many people came today. I love how many people hung out for the whole time. Love the questions. We'll read through the Q&A in the chat afterwards and probably do a follow-up like email post about getting into what's there. And we'll post this video in DFOS. So acorp.dfos.com. So we'll post this video, can get into more questions. And we'll be doing this on the regular, probably once a month. We'll start doing this through the, up until there's a law, and probably even more after that.
Yancey, for those of us
Thank you all. Yeah.
who are starting to advocate for this structure in our own state and talking to folks, what is the best way for us to connect, to kind of share the work that we're doing and be more involved? Washington State, one of the top, actually
Yeah.
the top GDP for creative economy. So we're very well poised to be one of
I
the
would say
states.
raise in the A-Corp DFOS would be the place to raise your hand. I did speak to a state senator from Washington State before, so there has been some contact there. But yeah, just like let's just use the A-Corp DFOS group chat to highlight these things. Lynn and I will follow up. If people want to step up more, raise your hand. Like it's at that level of it's only gotten here from people raising their hand and caring. So if that sounds like you, thank you, come say what's up. All right. Really appreciate everybody's time. More soon. Have a great rest of your summer.